stupid concept of race and understand that we're all the human race. And I think there's a lot of truth in that. And I, like I said, I used to think it would die off, but the problem is that hate is taught. And and so you have to find a way to stop teaching it, right? Just like fear, right? And I've said this before. It's like the reason you know the hate is taught is that if you put a black baby and a white baby in the center of a floor together with a bunch of toys, the white baby is not going to erect a hangman's gallows and put a hood over his head, right? Those things don't happen. They'll just play with each other because they're just kids and who cares? You have to be taught to hate the same way you have to be taught to fear. That's why when the kid's reaching up towards the stove, you have to say no, hot, or you have to teach them to be leery of these things. And I don't know that there's an answer to your question. Like, I mean, education, but beyond that, I don't know.
But even education, I mean, when you look at the American education system, it kind of breeds and promotes racism, just the way the history books are written.
I don't have enough information.
I've seen shows about it. There's that one female teacher. She goes around to different schools and classes and stuff, and she runs these classes, or she used to at least, where she would split the class up. Like, she's dealing with younger kids, like probably like
the Blue Eyes, Brown Eyes, or was it Blue Eyes, Green Eyes experiment?
Yes. So Blue Eyes and Brown Eyes, and said all the blue-eyed people are, they have to come into class second. They wear these collars, and then she starts treating all the brown-eyed people better than she does the blue-eyed people. And of course, the blue-eyed kids get upset, and the brown-eyed kids, like at recess, the brown-eyed kids are making fun of the blue-eyed kids and saying how they're better and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and it just devolves, like in a day, it devolves into this blue-eyed, brown-eyed, racist state, and then she brings them back in and says, like, it's wrong. What we're doing here is wrong. There's nothing different between.
I mean, obviously, the kind of the Stanford prison experiment was like the extreme end of that. Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
No,
I've heard of it, but I don't have any knowledge about it.
Basically, there was like a certain section of Stanford College that psychologists and behavioral experts essentially not rented, but like booked off. They like kind of like met with the dean and everybody else, and they just said, okay, we want to just like cordon this area of the college off. And they were in there for 3 weeks, and they split the class evenly into guards and into prisoners. And they like basically said, you're playing the role of a prison guard and you're playing the role of a prisoner, and they just let them off. They didn't say, that like you had to treat them badly, or that like they didn't do anything where like they dressed them up as prisoners. So like that would be kind of the the collar equivalent, but they didn't say like how to treat them. They had to end it after 4 days, because the people who were playing the role of the prison guards beat the living shit out of their classmates who were playing the roles of the prisoners. And it just goes to kind of show this idea of, if you're put into this role where there's, a stereotypical relationship between prison guards and prisoners, that otherwise, like, just normal people will act in grotesquely violent and just borderline evil ways for absolutely no reason other than that they were told that they were to take up the mantle of this role. Like, it was an insane. It is very much the extreme end of the Blue Eyes, Green Eyes experiment, but just to kind of so there was a little bit of kind of conversation before this experiment took place. They were kind of learning about that experiment, about the eyes one, and there was some conversation. Somebody said, well, yeah, well, I mean, like, that's just kids, right? You know, like kids are gonna be like more susceptible to, you know, bullying, teasing, or like, because that stuff happens when you're kids, right? But less so when you're adults. And so this experiment was devised to prove that the same thing happens with adults. And I mean, in a way, it was successful because it proved that it did, but, you know, yeah.
Kind of a high price to pay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Wow.
And it's difficult. It kind of like, it makes you think that that's our basis instinct. Like, if you're put in a position of power, you're going to pick on the ones that don't.
Yeah.
Which is sad.
Mm-hmm.
if it's an instinct.
Yeah, and it's interesting. That's why when guys, I'm sure you're familiar with the philosopher John Rawls and his concept of the veil of ignorance.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it's like, if you know, because if you start out not knowing whether or not, like, it's almost like this experiment was doomed from the get-go as soon as they said prisoners versus guards, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because if you set out to design a system as a group of people not knowing where you're going to fall, that's when you'll be more likely to guarantee equity in that situation, because you don't know if you're going to fall on the line of prison guard or prisoner. You know, it's like when you have everybody's heard the story about when your kid's sitting around the dinner table, right? And you know, one of the kids says, okay, you know, let me cut up the dessert, like, let me cut up the chocolate cake for dessert. And they say, okay, fine, you cut the cake, but the person who cuts the cake picks their piece last. Right. So kids will go out there with a fucking micrometer, you know, to make sure that it, you know, like, it's within like a picocentimeter. That's a measurement of time, but, you know, like within a millimeter, right? Because they want to make sure everything's totally equal. I don't want a smaller piece than anybody. So it just seems like that. I wonder if the people of that experiment had any concept as to how quickly it was going to devolve.
I genuinely don't know. It was a couple of years ago. It was in my first year of college that I learned about the Stanford Prison Experiment. But so, like, some of the details are kind of lost on me. I don't know, like, if they kind of knew ahead of time that this was gonna, you know, it was going to be like that bad, or that it was going to escalate to that to that degree. But
I hope from an ethical perspective that they didn't know, right? Because to do something knowing, let's get 3 weeks, 4 days, that's it.
Yeah.
And then they switch the roles. Then they see what happens.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, it's time to switch shirts and skins. Wait, what?
Yeah,
no, not anymore. Not anymore.
I was trying to explain to my mom, like, the kind of situation that's happening in the States, and so it was like almost like the kind of perfect alignment of scenario. So my cousin, who was born to Irish parents, so naturally she is the whitest of the white skin, you know, like borderline fucking albino. I mean, look at me, I'm pasty white. And her fiance is she's I don't know what, like, her ethnical background is, but, like, basically she's, like, you know, like, super tanned the whole year round. She's not like some people would kind of classify her as black. Like, the whole point is she's got more or less melanin. I don't know what the whole anyway, darker skin than my cousin.
Sure.
And I was kind of explaining to her, if my cousin and her fiance were to be arrested for the same crime, like identical scenarios, right? Both went into a you know, convenience store with a gun, held up the store, robbed the place for the exact same amount of money, everything, identical situation. Statistically, my cousin would get a lighter sentence than her fiance purely based on the color of her skin.
Oh yeah, without question.
That is fucked up. That is fucked up. Like, that's yeah.
I'll go you one further. There was a study that was done there was a study that was done in Canada. And my wife was telling me about it because she had to go through the hiring process where she had to select a new staff member, and she referred to a study that had been done where they took the names off of resumes
Mhm.
and interviewed people solely based on their qualifications.
Yeah.
Because they found that they were getting drastically different results of people getting through the screening process simply based on their names, right?
Yeah.
Because someone who has an ethnic sounding name was somehow getting filtered out of the process,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so you actually take the names off, and you until you've gone through the first round, until you said, okay, so I started out with 100 resumes, now I have 10. Once I have my short list of 10 based on qualifications, that's when you can find out what their names are and whether they are male, female, or other gendered.
Yeah,
And
it's
fascinating.
Really
oh
what
yeah,
they
yeah,
should
no,
do.
it was super fascinating. I presume it was the same thing anyway. Yeah, they had basically kind of like found out beforehand that like that names which were stereotypically African American, like, you know, Shaniqua or, you know, Jamarcus or any of these sorts of names, they were like far more likely to just be kind of tossed aside in favor of, you know,
Smith.
yeah, Smith, or, you know, John, or I hate to kind of throw you in, but Michael, or
Yeah,
like any
sure.
like any
I'm
of
pretty
those
sure
types of.
I've walked into rooms where people are shocked at who walked in based on my name.
Yeah,
Yeah, see,
maybe.
like that's I don't know, man. That's just super weird to me. Like, it just, like, I don't know, man. It
I
just.
mean, my parents left South Africa. Their main reason for leaving was apartheid, and they wanted a better life for their children.
Mhm.
And one of the other reasons was that my dad was very good with numbers his whole life. He wanted to be an accountant, but he was barred from being an accountant by law. He was not white. He could not be an accountant. It was against the law for somebody who wasn't white to be an accountant. He also couldn't own a business, or, because he actually worked with another white man who had a business, and that white man was retiring, and he goes, if I could, I would pass the business on to you, but I'm not allowed, and he had to find some other white guy to take over his position.
That's messed up. I mean, Dean, I think
Yeah.
you're weird, but I just know you better. So, I mean, that's the reason why I think you're weird. Yeah, that's messed up. That's messed up.
Yeah, like, just this whole idea, like, and like, as you kind of said earlier, Michael, the Hitchens quote of